She says because you own property and have a job makes you a feminist.
Right to vote. Yes.
But that does not make you a feminist.
Why would property ownership
I believe in gender roles. I believe that there are roles for men, and I believe that there are roles for women.
Okay. So that's traditional.
Yeah. So why would property ownership of women be a rejection of patriarchy?
I mean, from my understanding, women weren't able to own property, but I could be
Well,
wrong.
your understanding is flawed. They were able to own property. They've always been able to own
couldn't vote
property.
and all the other important stuff, so that's besides the point.
Agree.
I think-
I don't think it's beside the point.
Yeah, if
because-
you
literally.
okay, let's
By
just
the way,
clarify.
they
Do
were
you
always
think
able to
women
work.
should have the right to vote?
Hang on, stop. Let me finish. They were always able to work, and they were always able to own property. They weren't always able to vote, but most men were not always able to
Most
vote.
women
Almost no
weren't
men, in
working,
fact,
though.
were ever able to vote.
But
They only
most-
got the vote a few years before women got the vote.
Most women were not working and did not own property. That would be an exception.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that they couldn't.
They still
But
Just
they-
because
but it
they
wasn't a normal
didn't,
thing.
right?
It wasn't something that every woman was capable of doing. Now it is. That's
It's not.
feminism.
It wasn't a thing every man was capable of doing.
Okay, but you're not arguing that that's a bad thing. You're arguing that women being able to vote and such
Split.
is.
Yeah, but you just said that women, because not all women could own property because they didn't have the resources or capability to do so,
Wrong.
that meant it was a rejection of patriarchy. That's insane. That doesn't even logically track. Can you explain why that would logically track, or why it is that if women work, that would be a rejection of patriarchy? It makes no sense to me.
I mean, what you consider to be patriarchy is that the woman stays at home and fulfills her traditional gender role.
I didn't say anything about that. All patriarchy means is from the father. That's it.
From
it
the
just means
father.
that women and men have a different role in society, and that
And
men
what are those
are in the top
roles?
echelons of that society, all the way down to the household.
Can I make a statement? The average.
Why could women not work under such a system? I don't understand. Can you explain that to me?
I mean, most of them weren't working.
Yeah, but most of them not working doesn't mean that most of them couldn't work.
I don't think most places at the time, if most men were in the workforce and a woman walked in and was like, "Hey, can you hire me? I'll do whatever." Like, I don't think they would have equal
Oh, but they
opportunity
did.
as a
They did the
man.
same shit then that they do now. They were teachers and they worked as secretaries.
They were
and
nurses.
They worked in the service industry and they worked as nurses. They did all the same shit that they do right now. In fact, they were sought after to do those jobs. In fact, even in the midst of the mostest patriarchy that we had, they were still sought after.
Can I
But
make
it
a
wasn't
statement?
common, and women still weren't able to vote.
Yeah, but
Hold
most
on.
men weren't able to
Wait.
vote.
Stop. Allow them to have a back and forth, please.
Right.
Andrew, make your point, then you respond.
Yeah, most men weren't able to vote. So what's your point? Suffrage
mean
was
when you
never
say most men
universal.
weren't
Hang
able
on,
to
stop spurging before I even get the point out. Suffrage was not universal for men or women. It was not universal. We did not have a universal suffrage in the United States until way later in its history. Do you understand that?
But I still think that everybody should have the ability to
That's
vote.
nice, but that really has nothing to do with feminism, right? So
does.
one
First-wave
move of feminism
feminism
is only for the vote, but when you say women couldn't vote, neither could most men.
Couldn't.
I mean, when you say most men, what do you mean by that?
Almost no men could vote.
Which men couldn't vote?
Hold on. I actually have something on
You
this really
have-
quickly. So only 50 years, I just have this written down. It was only a 50-year period of time between the ratification of the 15th Amendment, which gave all men the right to vote in 1870, and the 19th Amendment, women's vote, in 1920. So there's only 50 years in America that all men could vote, that women cannot.
Okay, I just think women should have the right to vote.
Well, then why
very
did they all vote it down when they were presented with the
Shit, our
option of
votes don't
voting for the
matter
right to
anyway.
vote?
100%.
When they were presented with the option of actually being able to vote for the right to vote, they
Everything's
voted
rigged.
against it. And so that's why he ended up with a amendment instead, because they went through the court
Most
system
women
instead
voted
for it,
against it.
because women didn't want the right to vote.
No, they wanted the right to vote. They didn't want to be drafted. There's a difference.
No, they didn't want the right to vote.
Yes, they
In
did.
fact,
They just didn't want it to be connected to the
hang on.
draft.
How many women do you think wanted the right to vote?
I think
How many?
most of them didn't want to be drafted, and the right to vote was
So
connected to the draft.
you think that they should just be able to vote without having the responsibility of the draft?
Yeah, I don't think fighting in a war determines whether you're eligible or not to participate in democracy.
That's how men
Oh,
got
great.
the vote.
So then,
I don't
just to
think
get
they
this
should
right,
have had the vote before.
you want men to go fight your wars while you vote that they do.
Women are fighting
Great.
in wars too. They just fight in the back line, and they're on the
And they're
intelligence.
They're
Yeah,
volunteer.
that's nice that that Chef Boyar woman is making the food for the men and signing their paychecks, but They're not in the front lines getting killed, are they? So it's
Well, I
very
mean,
nice.
unless they're as
It
strong
sure
as
is
they're
nice
gonna
that you want the right to vote, that to send men to wars that you yourself don't have to fight.
So, to clarify, do you think that women should have the right to vote or not?
No.
No.
Okay. Do you guys
But I
agree
also-
with this?
I do agree with him. Can I say why I
Stop.
agree, though?
I'm
Can I
glad
say
we
why I
Let me
agree
finish.
with
Let me
feminism
finish the
is now.
point.
Thank
Yeah, I always answer directly.
I
but
disagree.
You still have to answer to the caveat. No, but I also don't think most people should have the right to
Agreed.
vote.
I disagree with you, but that's
Can
okay.
I
We
can I say
agree to
why I
disagree.
agree with Andrew though? Because most women and some of these new up and coming men that are voting, they vote on emotion and they just watch
You
the
can't-
news
that's
and
not an
vote for who
answer.
they're told
You
to vote
can't-
for.
You can't just be like, I don't like who you're voting for, therefore you can't
It's
have
not
the right to
about.
vote. That's
it's
ridiculous.
Not, it's
A
Yeah,
not, you
why
won't
not?
even let me
Why
finish.
can't we do that? Yeah,
You
why
won't
can't
let
we
me
do that?
finish.
A democracy is literally about letting everybody.
We don't have a democracy.
No, we
live
don't
in
have
a
democracy
republic,
anymore.
Not
It's
a
a
democracy.
republic. We were found on a republic. And if you
Republican
sit there
democracy.
and
Hello.
say that everybody should have the right to vote when they're blindly voting because they're voting because of their famous people are telling them how to vote and they're not actually educating themselves on the facts, I don't think I don't think everybody should have the right to
What
vote.
if I don't think you're educating yourself on the facts? And I
No
think
matter
you're
who
misled?
wins for the votes, y'all still gonna be mad. So
It's
who
like,
wins?
for
literally.
instance, Kanye West. It's like, for instance, Kanye West was on the ballot. And the majority of the 18, 19, and 20-year-old voted for Kanye West because who he was. I do not think that everybody should have the right to vote because they don't vote on fact. They
a lot
vote on
of
emotion.
people, even in their 40s and 50s and 60s, vote for whatever headlines are telling them and rage baiting them. Oh, this is how lefties are. This is how conservatives are. This is how liberals are. And then they just interpret that and vote
Yeah.
accordingly. A
But
lot
this
of
is
people-
Sounds like
coming
they-
from
sounds
someone
like
that's from
they shouldn't be
Canada
voting.
and
Yes,
has been
69.
ruled.
Yeah,
I'm
hey, that's
from
great.
America.
Sounds like they
I
shouldn't
was
be
born in
voting.
the States
Great
and I
point.
grew up in New York, okay? I moved to Canada 4 years ago. Relax.
Okay, I'm just saying.
Wait, you
Yeah,
moved
so
to
I mean, it sounds like if you
Well,
think that those
goddamn.
old people also are voting irresponsibly, that we probably shouldn't let them vote. That seems
I
very
don't
pretty
think-
stupid, right?
I think if you live in a country, you should be able to vote in it. That's it.
Why?
Because
Based on
that's how
what?
democracy works. It's very simple. If I live in a country, I should be able to have
Monarchies
a say in how
work.
it
What's your
works.
point?
Here's a democracy question. So
Hang on. Let me finish with it real quick. Monarchies work. So what's your point? Just saying, oh, because it works. Well, all sorts of systems of government
No, I'm saying-
work.
I'm saying it's only fair.
Oppressive governments work. Non-oppressive governments work. All sorts
I
of
mean, I would
governments
argue
work.
that oppressive governments don't work, but we can agree to disagree on
Yes, they do work. Wait, I'm sorry.
that. They're not
How do
working
they
in
not
benefit
work?
for the people. I think a goal of the government is to actually benefit the people. So if a
And
government
I'm
is
sorry,
oppressive, I don't think it's working.
in order to benefit
wait.
the
Let me get this.
people,
Let me get this right. I'm sorry.
That's the
You
ultimate
think
goal.
that the
Does it
government's
always do that?
job?
No.
Can I just say this? In order
You think
to
that the
benefit,
government? No, you can't. Let us finish our argument here. Calm down, lady. So, you're saying that governments themselves are supposed to be there on behalf of the people,
Yes,
correct?
that's what they're
That's
supposed
what you think?
to do. I don't think they always.
Can
end
you
up doing
explain
that.
why a monarchy is not?
Because a monarchy usually doesn't end up like that. When you have one person with power, they usually end up looking out for themselves and not caring about everybody else.
It's not one person with power.
Okay.
They have nobles, they have franklins, they have land stewards, they had knights, they had all sorts of different things which were in the upper aristocratic class,
What is your
which,
point
by the
here?
way, hang on, let me finish, lady, is exactly what you got right now, an aristocratic class, and then you have an underclass. Do you agree or disagree?
That I agree with.
Yeah, so then what's your point?
My point is that everybody should have the right to vote. If you live in a country,
Why?
you should be able to have a say in how it works and how it runs.
Why?
It's really-
Why should
because you?
You
live
just keep
in the
asserting
country.
it. You keep
live
asserting
in
it,
the
but you're not giving an
country.
argument. You just say,
If
because I
you-
want it.
It's yeah, literally. Thank you.
Can-
Like
wait,
you
can I
live
ask-
in the country. You should be able.
Can I
to have
ask a
say.
question?
So what? That's not a should claim.
I
Saying
think
I
it
should be
is.
able to
If
do
you
this
live in a
because I
country,
should.
you
All
should
you're
have a
saying is
say.
this. Hang on. All you're saying is this. I should be able to do this because I should be able to do this because I should be able to do this.
Minus_69 donated $69. Both men and women should have the right to vote. Before being allowed to vote, one should at least pass a civic test.
Well, then it wouldn't be a right. So anyway, so back to this.
Wait, hold on,
just-
Andrew. There's one more coming in. I just want to preempt
Okay.
it, just so you don't get interrupted again. I
Yeah,
just
yeah, no
didn't
problem.
want it to come in.
Honor the Gods donated $100. Girl in black, feel shame for your past, regret it, then rise above it. Your value is higher than the 2 Delianus W50 plus body counter mentality is on the rig.
Thank you.
Thank you. Honor the gods. Appreciate it, man. Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead, Andrew.
So anyway, all these forms of government work fine. I don't know why you keep on saying they didn't work. Of course they worked. I mean, we can point to history and some. Hang on, let me finish before you start spurging, and then I'll let you talk. Just calm down, okay? Just so you know, when I'm talking and you're talking, I can't hear you, and I want to hear your argument, okay? So, going back to this, of course those governments worked. They worked fine. You can say that they didn't work as well. That could be an argument, this type of thing. But you're still not answering the question of should. Why should they, other than you just want them to?
I genuinely believe that a democracy is only actually a democracy if the people who are citizens of that state have a right to vote in how it runs. That's it.
Yeah, but that doesn't give us a reason why it should be a
What are you
democracy
looking
or
for?
why
I don't
people
understand,
should.
because to me that is a reason.
Can I ask a question?
Okay, but that's not a justified reason. You're just saying they should because they should because they should.
Because you live in the country. You should have a say if you live in the country. That's
Why?
it. Because it's not, you're not a free citizen if you don't have a say in how it runs. I think
Why? Why would you not be free if you didn't have a say in how things ran?
Because if
you don't have a say in how almost anything on planet Earth is run,
As an
including in your
individual, yeah,
nation.
you're right.
Do you consider yourself free because you can vote?
No, as an
Into the mic.
As an individual, no, I don't. Like, I don't think my individual impact is going to do anything unless I'm extremely rich with like billions of dollars. But I'm
What
not.
the hell are you talking about?
As a whole, people collectively, right? If no woman can vote, then women don't have a say at all. But if one
You would
woman
still
can vote,
have,
it still wouldn't make a
even if you took
difference.
Suffrage. Hang on, even if you took suffrage and you were to limit suffrage, you would still have collective voting. It's just that not every fucking idiot could vote. What the hell would be wrong with that?
can't
Why do
make
you
it-
want
it's
every
not-
moron? Hang on. Why do you want every moron on earth to be able to vote? That's
I'm
the
not saying
stupidest thing I've ever
every
heard.
person should vote. I'm not saying if you're 15, you're 12, you're 11, you should vote. Okay, I do think
Why?
that there should be.
Yeah,
a
but how
limit.
come?
Because at some point you're just too young to understand the dynamics.
Yeah. Okay, so because they're dumb?
No, not. I mean, sure.
Okay, that's hilarious, honestly.
Well, I mean, isn't that what you're saying? You don't
No, I'm
want
just
a
saying they're
13-year-old
learning.
to vote because they're fucking dumb,
I think
right?
you're being dishonest right now. I think it's
I
pretty
think
obvious.
I'm being the most
Yes, I
honest
think
out of
so.
everybody in this
I think
panel.
It's pretty obvious why you wouldn't want a 16-year-old
Again,
voting.
what's the obvious? Okay, so why?
Because what a 16-year-old is busy in high school, like studying for their tests, hanging out with their friends. They don't care about
Yeah,
politics.
they're way more busy than adults who are working 60 hours a week.
but
They're so busy.
Most
They're
adults
just too
aren't
busy.
voting. The reality is, like, a third of Americans are voting.
Yeah, but so what? The point is that they all can, and 15-year-olds
think that's
can't.
good.
Why shouldn't 15-year-olds be able to vote then?
Come on.
Because they don't have
use
the
your
knowledge.
common sense.
I'll do that's not an argument.
Literally,
That's
I
infidelity.
gave it
Don't
to
care
you
about
already. Why are you
infidelity. Make
asking
an
me to
argument.
repeat myself 17 times? I told you, they're too young. They're in high school. They're focused on other things. They don't care about politics. And even if they wanted to, they don't understand the dynamics of it. If you want
So
to argue
you're
that
saying-
18
so
is
you're
still
saying-
too young and you think 25 should be the limit of
Perfect.
voting, maybe we could have a conversation there. But I don't think that saying women shouldn't vote is a good solution. I think that's ridiculous.
So wait a
Agree to
second. So
disagree.
at 17 years and 11 months, you're too stupid to vote. At 18 years old, you're smart enough now to vote,
Jesus
correct?
Christ.
That's what I was saying. If you want to have an argument about when
Christ.
the proper age to vote is, we could have that argument, but I don't
Yeah,
think
but the point of the argument is the reason you think that young people shouldn't be able to vote is because they're too dumb. Not because they're wrapped up with high school, which takes 6 hours a day, and where their parents are working 10 to
I think
12
it's
hours a
both.
day,
Like,
and they're
let's-
still out there voting.
I think it's plenty
It's
of-
clearly not because they're in fucking high school. It's because you think they're dumb.
I think it's both. I think they're both
you don't
stupid
gotta
and
let
they're
them
also
win.
focused on their own
Right, so
world.
why should we let stupid people vote? Tell me.
Democracy functions in such a way that even people you disagree with have the right to vote. It doesn't matter if you think they're really, really,
You're just
really
asserting
stupid.
what is, not what ought
I
to
am
be.
telling
Why
you
should
what-
we let the stupid people vote?
The
Why should we
reason
let them
these
vote?
Literally, like, I don't
I-
you're asking
can
me
I-
the same questions over and over, and
Can
I'm
I
giving you the
ask
Yeah,
same
'cause you
answer.
won't answer.
Brian, go
I
ahead.
am
Okay,
answering, you
I'll
just don't
explain.
like my
Hang on, I'll break it
answer.
down. I'll break it down super simple.
Can I just ask one question?
There's,
Nope.
hang on, there's is and there's ought. What is true is not what
Well,
I'm
right
asking
now
you.
what is true is that
Stop-
everyone
Stop
has-
talking so I can finish this. That way we don't go in a circle. What is true is not what ought be true. So when you just keep on giving me the descriptor of, but that's how democracies work, though, I don't give a shit.
Well, how it
they
is right
work. I'm
now.
asking you why we ought to have, what is the justification for why every idiot should vote? What is it?
I'm sorry. Are you basically saying that you think everybody you disagree with shouldn't have the right to vote? I just want to clarify.
No, he's
No,
just
that's
saying
not what I
stupid
said.
people shouldn't
Okay,
vote.
so if you think a 30-year-old is really dumb, should they have the right to vote or no?
Yeah, I don't think dumb people should vote. No.
I agree.
Okay, well, I disagree.
Okay,
Yeah,
I disagree.
but that's what I'm asking. So that's what I'm asking. Why ought dumb people be able to vote? Now,
Because we
without
live in a
telling me,
democracy.
hang on, without telling me, because that is the way it works, because I don't give a shit about that. I'm asking about ought.
I
Why
didn't
ought
say
it
that
work
once.
that way?
Every single time I've answered your question, I told you because they live in the country and they should therefore have a right to have some sort of say in how it functions.
asking
even if
why.
it's minimal.
Yeah, but that's circular. So let me explain how that's circular. When I say why should they, you say because they should. And I say why, you say because they live here. I say why is living here? Hang on. I say why, if they're living here, does that mean they should have the right to vote? And you say because they live here. And I say, yeah, but why should that entitle them to voting? You say because it does.
That's simple, because they live here. Even if you disagree with them, you think they're really stupid, even if you think they're just following Taylor Swift or Kanye West or whatever it is, I don't care how much of a sheep you think they are. A democracy means even the people you disagree with have the right to vote.
GMD Jim donated $69. We do not live in a democracy. Stop
Yeah, we
saying
don't.
that.
We already
A
said it.
democracy is mob rules. We live in a republic.
A Republican
Just
democracy.
because you breathe air does not mean you shoe.
Oh, really? We were founded as a republic. Could everybody vote?
No. When we were founded as a republic, not everybody could vote.
When we were founded as a republic, could everyone vote or not, lady?
No.
No. Okay, wait. I thought that a republic was a democracy.
I
and
said
in
a
democracy, everyone
Republican
can vote.
democracy. I never said Republican. I never said a Republican is a democracy. I said
Right.
we live
So then
in
we
a
don't live
Republican
in a democracy, do we?
We live in one currently, yes.
No,
because
we live in a
Republic of the
republic,
United
and there have been
States, not the
democratic voting rights
democracy
which
of
have
the
been
United
extended.
States.
These are two different concepts.
Currently, we live in a democratic republic.
We live in a republic
Republican
where democratic measures are used, but you can limit suffrage. There's nothing saying that you can't.
Yeah, but I think the way you
my
wanna
question
limit
is
is
why
extreme.
shouldn't we do that? That's my question. Why shouldn't we? You just say because we live here.
I think
Oh,
stupid
okay,
people-
great. Well, I live here and I don't want that, so I guess it's fine, right? We won't do it.
If you share a house with somebody, right, and you have a whole family, and somebody who wants to have a say in what goes on in their room, right?
Yeah.
Should they not be able to because they're stupid? You've decided you actually don't like them?
Yeah, if they're stupid and they live in my house, I don't want them to have a say in what
No,
goes
you
on
all
in their
share the
room.
house. It's
They're
not
too
yours.
dumb.
You share the house. Your roommates.
Yeah.
They're not your children. You share the house. So now everybody's paying equally.
Yeah, but what if, so inside of the house, the decisions they make inside of the house in their room, like, I don't know, leaving rotten food out and stuff like that because they're fucking stupid, affects me, right?
Sure.
Yeah, so then I would have every business going in and saying, hey, why don't you clean up that fucking shit that's everywhere that
Sure, but you're
affects
not
me?"
gonna control
And they
the whole
go, oh,
world.
what do you mean? I'm dumb. I'm just dumb. I can't help. I'm stupid.
Okay, but should he still not have a say in what goes on in the house or in his own room?
No, because he's creating bugs.
Well, see, it seems that the responsible thing would be to have the house run by a person who can run the house, not a person who'd leave rotten
You're all
food out because they're
sharing
stupid, right?
You're all sharing it. You guys are like living in a 4-bedroom apartment. Everybody's splitting
Yeah,
the
but
rent.
why does that mean that it's equal? Because we're
Why
all sharing
he's
it.
paying for his portion? Why should he pay? If you don't want them to vote, then don't charge them taxes.
Why would you not charge them taxes?
Because they can't vote. They can't have a say in how you're using the taxes. Why should you get to take money from them and be like, but you actually can't tell us how we're going to use it, though?
Well, wait a second. I'm super confused. So, do you think you have a say in where your taxes go right
No,
now?
I don't think you have a say, but when you vote, you do
Well,
have
then
at
what
least
the
a little
fuck
bit of
are
an
you
impact.
talking about? I'm sorry, does the IRS send you a little
I am
ledger and
not
say,
arguing.
here's where your
I'm not
taxes
arguing
went?
that
Hang
the
on,
US is
IRS goes,
perfect.
here's where your taxes went. Your taxes went to social services and the military and this and that. Not, did they send you a letter saying, oh, your taxes went to this black ops that you hate?
I am
this
not arguing.
Your taxes went to this. Your taxes, the IRS doesn't send you a ledger telling you where your taxes go.
Killer of Cereal donated $69. Wanna get some coffee? Sure, where from? Get some coffee. Yeah, sure. Sure? Yeah, I'd like some coffee. Okay, let's go to get some coffee. Where from?
If you guys can,
And by the way, let me
Conversation
just
feels like.
finish
I
it off
agree.
this way. Even if I grant your argument and tell you, okay, fine, don't charge them taxes, and then they don't vote. Fair enough. just so you know, most people in the United States, are not a net positive on the tax base. So therefore, most people in the United States should not vote by your logic. Is that correct?
What do you mean? Most people in the States are paying taxes.
You just got done saying, then don't charge them tax. I'm telling you that most people don't pay taxes. Most people don't pay taxes.
Are they
most
like defrauding? What do you mean when you say
No, they're not
paying
defrauding.
Taxes? Like
they
their
take
children?
more out of the system than they put into the system.
Oh, okay, but they're still paying taxes.
No. They're receiving taxes.
I don't, like, can you give me an example of what
So
you
if
mean?
I say to you, here's $100, now give me $200, are you saying that you've paid me $100?
No, but you're still paying.
No, that's what happens with the tax
Minus
system.
underscore
Most people are not
69
paying in.
donated
They're just getting out.
$69. Just because someone wants something doesn't
I
give
gotta
them
move
any
it
right
on
to have
after
it.
this chat.
That is why not everyone should be allowed to vote.
But just so you know, just real quick, I
Final
just would
thing.
like this concession, that if most people are not paying taxes, by this logic, most people should not be able to vote, right?
Yeah, but they're paying taxes. You're just considering them not paying taxes because it's going negative. But I think that's a problem of the government more so than the individual. So I think if the individual is paying the tax, they should be able to have the right to vote.
Even if they get more back
Yeah,
than what they
because
pay
that's a
in.
government issue. That's not really
Of
an
course,
individual
so then
problem.
they pay no taxes and they actually receive tax dollars, but they still deserve
If
to be
they're
able
not
to
paying
vote.
taxes,
Even though they're
then
now,
no.
not only are they not paying taxes, they're just getting tax money.
If they're not paying taxes, then probably not. If they are, then yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't matter if the government's going negative on the fact that they're paying taxes. Again, that's something the government should fix.
No, I'm saying the government's giving more benefits to the individual than the individual is giving to the government. Meaning they're actually a net drain on the tax
they're
system.
getting state
They're not paying anything in. They're getting out, in fact.
Are you talking about welfare?
Not just social welfare. That's not just it, but people who live under the property threshold and the poverty threshold, and people who are super wealthy also pay no tax.
I mean, well, they should.
Good,
should be paying
but they
taxes.
don't, so they shouldn't be able to
I guess
vote,
if you're
right?
defrauding the government, then you shouldn't really have the right to vote.
But
I gotta move things on. Gotta move things on. I gotta
I'll
move
take
things
a
on.
concession. All right.